Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have Mr. Amazing, Mr. Dan Meredith. How are you, Dan?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. It's good to see you and speak to you. It's been a little while.
It has, yeah, and it's really good to see you because I think, well, one thing I would say with you is that, I don't, there's this thing called social media, which I know is supposed to kind of like, there's a yin and a yang to that about actually, creating mental health and challenges around that. But one of the things I think that I like about stuff that you do is that you share so authentically on social media, what's going through your brain. And it's quite long post, but what I love about it is it's just so straight. It's like, I think that's where I first came across you, quite a few years ago, and obviously we'll get on some of the stuff you've done. But thank you for coming on the show today. It's
more than welcome.
It's an honor to have you on.
Pleasure, mate.
Yeah, now over 100 episodes of the G&T Sessions, you see. So
we're consistent, mate. You stuck at it.
Well, not about consistent. We're just trucking along, after years and years of toil and trouble. We just keep going. Yeah, I think some podcasts don't last after 8 episodes. I think we die.
Yes, 8 episodes is the most podcasts limit. So the fact if you get over, I think 50, you're in the top 5 or 10% already, or quite a small number. So yeah, the fact is, even myself now with my own podcast, I think we are 100+ episodes deep now, and it's just you've got to be consistent, and that's obviously one of the things that I talk about quite a bit.
Well, because that's the thing. I think it's like, what I would say is it's like that. It's that thing, discipline, isn't it? I know there's that famous Jocko Willink phrase, discipline equals freedom. But
True.
Some people. What I'm saying is, some people put stuff on social media. It's like there's no value. But what I think you do some funny stuff, which I think it brings out from your character. But then you also do some, some kind of like some things that make you think. Because I think otherwise it just becomes like, you don't add the value. And I suppose also you do your communities as well, don't you? So it also helps to kind of make it real, I suppose, when you get people together.
I think with social media, especially with the proliferation of, AI and outsourcing and, kind of like getting other people to do things for you, which is nothing wrong with any of that. It can be very easy to take the easy option. I've always treated social media like a running journal. I share what's on my mind, what I'm learning, what I'm thinking about, things that I'm experiencing. I generally will share wins and the how I got those wins, and equally I'll share losses and things that have gone wrong after the fact. So I'm not one of those people that goes on and is like, poor me, everything's shit, boo-hoo, all that kind of stuff. But, I'm a human being. I have things go wrong in my life. I have things go pear-shaped. I'll always try and find the lesson from that and find the value in it. And I just try and share. And I hate the term, share authentically, but I just be myself. I don't really filter. I don't even really check my spelling or grammar half the time. I just write it, post it. And my goal is to kind of build almost like, if somebody wants to, work with me or speak to me or have me work with them, whatever it may be, I want them to get a good feel of who I am as a person as well as a professional as well. So I like to think what I share is a mixture of, useful stuff, things that you can add to your life or your business right now, my thoughts or feelings, my nonsense, like the silly things I get up to, my beliefs, my values, all that sort of thing. So for me, it's very much like a recipe, like too much of one thing will sort of spoil that recipe. So I try and have a nice little mix of things that show you, the viewer or the reader, who I am, what I stand for, what I stand against, what my values are. And it just makes it a lot easier for people to, if they want to work with me, they either like me or they don't. And that's what it boils down to. If you don't, then that's awesome, because there's plenty of other people out there who are really going to be ideal for you.
Yeah, so I know that. I've been working on my book for quite a few years. I'm planning this year. I'm going to get it out. But I know that one of the things that I loved was obviously when the title of your first book. Yeah, you can't really miss it, right?
You
can't, unless you've been like under a rock somewhere. So for people that don't know about that book, do you want to just explain what was the genesis of that and what's it called?
So the genesis was, pretty much 8 years ago, I was in a mastermind in Utah. I don't drink anymore, but I'd had a few drinks at this point with a friend of mine, and we decided to put on an event, and we drunkenly emailed Gary V with this loose bones of an event. We said we'd got a venue. We hadn't at this point. We basically said, look, what can we get, what would it cost us to get you over? And then we'll figure it out. So we ended up then the next day realizing that we'd committed to that. And we were like, shit, now we've got to find somewhere. So we then went to the venue we were hoping for. It was available. So we all of a sudden had this mad scramble to fill a 1,000-seater event from scratch. And we did this. This is a 5-week window, just to give you an idea. So this is 5 weeks. We got Gary booked over. We got, I think, about another 5 really well-known, high quality speakers as well, from the UK and the US. We had a real nice mix of, real good quality, well-respected, well-known speakers. Then we just decided to hustle like absolute fruitcakes just to get those seats filled. Whilst this was going on, a few people mentioned to me, like prior to this point and after, they said, oh, you should really write a book. You're really interested. You got all these experiences. And I'm like, no, I'm fucking not. Don't be daft. I'm not going to write a book. It was never on my radar to write a book. And I really didn't have the time. But people kept asking me for it. And I thought, do you know what? I reckon, because I'd looked into it, so there's these, the sort of books you get at a train station are about 40,000-ish words. And I thought, well, I can churn out copy. I was a copywriter for years. I can write, comfortably sort of 7,000 to 10,000 words a day. So in my head, I'm like, oh, it's just 4 days work. So I arranged to meet a publisher. We did a planning day. And then I wrote that book in 3.5 days. So I literally just smashed it out, handed it over to him because we had to get it done. I had a lag time to get these things printed. So my goal was to sell.
You wrote that in 3.5 days.
Yeah, 1 day planning and then 3.5 days of writing.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's brilliant.
No, that's the God's honest truth.
You just shamed me into getting my arse in gear and sorting this out now.
I had a goal and a deadline. I had to get it. I had no choice but to get it done. And I used to live in a really nice apartment block, and there's a Costa Coffee downstairs. And I used to go there every day to do my work. And that's where the idea for my Facebook group Coffee with Dan came from, because I would go down, have a coffee, and then do my work. That was where the genesis of the idea for the group came. So I knew the people who ran the coffee shop, and I basically said, look, can I pay you to stay open? I'll kind of look after you. And basically I had one of the staff who stayed with me for 24 hours. I didn't leave. So I literally just had coffee. I didn't sleep. It's not smart. I don't recommend it. Took a lot of nootropics and just wrote. And I had the plan, and my goal was to sell 500. That was it. I wanted to sell 500 copies, £10 each on the night, and the money that we raised was going to go to the charity that supported my little sister when she was younger. So that was the goal. And then we obviously put it on Kindle because we thought we might as well just stick it on there. And scroll forward not that many months, and it was multiple bestsellers, internationally. And we're talking like category 1 in business, in entrepreneurship, in self-help, and not just the sort of bestsellers where you're there for like an hour and then it runs down. It was there for like months and months. We sold, honestly, across that and Audible, several 100,000 / 1 million plus digital downloads, physical copies. Yeah, I didn't expect this. We sold 250,000 to a bookstore in America in 2020. So I think there's already a 4-year-old book at that point. It went wild to the point where, I've never run any paid traffic for any of the stuff I've done. I've sort of leveraged, organic and my network and sort of that sort of thing to grow my business. And my friend messaged me saying, oh, you've finally broken your paid traffic cherry. And I'm like, I've no idea what you're talking about. None whatsoever. And he sent me a screenshot, and it was on, I think this one was on Twitter, and he saw it again on Instagram because it was obviously retargeted and followed him around. And Audible were selling so many copies of my book, they were running paid traffic to my book. So they were actually paying for my advertising, so they were selling so many. It went wild. We were number 1, I believe, in all of Audible, so fiction and non-fiction, for a good month at one point, I think, from memory. My memory is a little bit blurred because I did still used to drink back then, but I knew we were there for a while, and it was pretty crazy. So yeah, that's what happened. And, it was based off of other people saying I should do it. And I thought, well, fuck it, let's give it a go. And that's pretty much been my philosophy since I went into the whole entrepreneurship online space, is just giving things a go.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, because I suppose a couple of points. So, every episode that I've published, right, of this podcast, I've never edited it, and I've never
Oh,
edited it
really?
ever. I've just like basically recorded it in one go and then published it and be damned. So I've never put any, I mean, there's probably some stuff I could do, but to make it more, whatever. But that's interesting. And then, so that, that picture that you put on social media the other week, where there's like Gary V with literally your book in his mouth. Is that from the launch event then? Is that from that event?
That is from the night, mate. That is literally from the night. So he was on stage in the ring. We held it in York Hall in London, which is a famous boxing venue. Obviously, his book at the time, Jab Jab. Was it Jab 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 Right Hook? Was it 3 jabs or 2? I can't remember, but I think it might be Jab Jab Right Hook, which was his book on sort of social media and marketing. He was a big boxing fan himself, so that's kind of one of the reasons we managed to get him over, because he was a fan and it was quite different. So, I mean, I've got to be honest. I mean, I don't know how many stages you've spoken on, but it's generally easier when you're at the front, just addressing people in front of you. We were doing it in a boxing ring, so we had 4 different angles, 4 different place sort of sides we had to address the crowd to, and then top floor and bottom floor. So we had 8 different sets of people we had to address and keep engaged. It was a crazy night, but yeah. And then I
It's like being in the Colosseum, isn't it? It's like being in the Colosseum with a kind of.
It was all around us, and he just, he liked the book. He grabbed it. He chose to take a photo of it. I didn't ask him to do any of that, and he was a really thoroughly nice guy, and especially because it's at the time when he's still obviously incredibly popular now, but it was when he was really at his peak, and it was he was everywhere, and he was like the guy to sort of model and follow, and there were people like clamoring to meet him, and kind of almost trying to like elbow their way into the backstage area, which I don't mind. I mean, I'll never disrespect anyone's hustle or trying to better themselves, but it got a bit cringy at one point, and he actually was really cool. And I remember him saying to these people, said, "I will have a conversation with you, but I want to speak to these people here." And he literally took time out to chat to my mum and dad and literally have a conversation with them. And he was such a really thoroughly decent guy, very, very respectful. But and that, I was doing okay because I was quite well known in the sort of marketing space and, business space and funnels and all that kind of stuff. And then that really just skyrocketed. And then, I'd say, one of the biggest defining moments in my life, mate, those 5 weeks, maddest. Wow. Oh, definitely. On a professional sense, I wrote the book, I launched my membership site, I put on a massive event, I did all that in 5 weeks from scratch, having never done any of that before.
That's Herculean. That's what a great story. It's stupid. It's stupid. I was trying to be positive there. I was saying it's Hercules, and then he said it's stupid.
Thank you for the lovely comment, but it is. I mean, when I look back, it's daft. I mean, I'm doing something similar now, not quite as short a time scale, but still with the amount of work I have on now, it's increased as a robustly increased workload, but. For me, I've always found that I work best with, the fairly aggressive deadline. I'm a big fan of, Parkinson's law, and that work expands the time you allocate to it. So if I give myself, I know for a fact it's probably going to be like a month of really fucking hard work to get some of these things done. What's the point of me saying 3 months? I'm just not going to start until a month before. And that's just, I know how I work. Some people are really good at slow and steady, and slow and steady will always win the race. Consistent, showing up, making improvements, doing the work every day is always going to be the long term.
It's like the tortoise or the hare.
Yeah, it is, mate. And I'm very much a case of, I was always purely hare, like just sprint towards the thing and then kind of rest. Now I'm quite boring. I'd say I show up pretty much every single day on social media, on email. I'm consistent. I've changed as a person, and my message has changed, which I think is good, because if you don't change as time goes on, then you haven't really learned anything. So I'm really happy with that. But I also know that I need periods of real furious effort. So it's kind of like, I call it like aggressively leveling up. So slow and steady, yes, does win the race. But for those of us out there, small incremental changes don't necessarily motivate me that much. I don't really see them. I was a big fan.
You want like a step change kind of thing. You want to kind of go to the next level.
been really, I've forgotten the full name. It's the 10x. Oh, what's it? By Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I'm not going to get my phone out, but it was
Oh yeah,
by,
yeah. He's a good guy. Yeah, he's a good guy, Benjamin Hardy. Yeah.
yeah, but I think it's the 10x,
The 10x rule. The 10x rule
yeah,
or whatever.
that's it. And it's just basically was going along about if, needed to, it's not Grant Cardone stuff.
That's what it is. It's 10x is easier than 2x. I think that's what he's saying.
Thank you. You've nailed it. Yeah. And it was basically saying, if you had to 10x your business, there's probably only one or two things that you should do to do that. And if you really, you might have to cut some things away or, have a dip in income, but to go forward onto that next level, then you're probably better off doing it. And I've really leaned into that, and it's kind of helped me sharpen my mind as well. So I go through, I'm basically consistent all the time on pretty much everything, coupled with periods of intense and furious effort with a very defined goal at the end. And oftentimes I don't know how I'm going to achieve that goal. I don't. But once I've made my mind up, it has to be done by then. My brain switches from what if to problem solving. I've now got, instead of what if it doesn't work, what if it is blah, 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 blah. Now I go, cool. What do I need to do to make that happen? Who do I need to speak to? Who do I need to pay? Who do I need to get involved? What conversations do I need to have? What do I need to invest in? And it's really helped me kind of like level up in kind of like aggressive chunks. And I'm going through a phase of that right now. My plan this year was first 6 months of the year was to do that. My birthday's in June. So that was my transition point. So I said, I'm going to do two things. Done one, nailed it. I'm on to the second one now. After that, I'm going to go into, it's kind of, I call it a blast and cruise from my first book. So I'm doing a blast right now. Then I'm going to cruise for a period of time. So that will have got me up, 2 or 3 levels to a different level in business that I'm going to maintain for a period of time, put systems in place, see if I like it, make sure it still works, make sure I'm still providing, valuable service and stuff. And then when I get the itch, I will blast again. And I think I'll keep doing that until I run out of damn.
I don't think you run out of damn. You've got so much energy. I think that's impossible. I mean, I was going to say to you that no, it's interesting because I think that's that thing. Like with your Gary Vee example, where you obviously you spoke to him, and you obviously did some research and worked out what would be his trigger, right? So because he obviously probably gets lots of offers. Oh, come here, come here, come here, come here. How, and your hall is a legendary place, right?
Yeah.
So it's like legendary for boxing in East London. So so that there's a pull there. No matter what you're going to do, whether money's involved or whatever, usually that's actually thinking about it. So it's interesting trying to you've obviously researched him as a client and saying, okay, how do you attract him? But yeah, I mean that's a fantastic story, Dan. That's fantastic. I didn't
Thanks,
know
mate.
that. And then I suppose the question is then you got your launch event for your next book in June, is that right? So is this going to be a birthday thing or something? Is it launch it on your birthday then or something like that? Or you don't know?
Precisely that. I've decided to, do you know what? Because since the first book came out, I don't know if I actually mentioned the title, but it's called How to Be Fucking Awesome. That was a book. That was what my publisher, it wasn't the original title. It didn't have a title to start off with, but my publisher came up with that. It's when the F-bomb was popular in a few books, and I'm really proud of it. Sometimes, as a 43, nearly 44-year-old man, sometimes I look back and think, oh, fucking hell, that's a bit cheesy. But I'm also still really proud of it and the impact it's made. And, to this day, the lovely, daily, every single day, I get messages about how much that book has meant to them, the mental shifts it give them, things they learn from it. So I'm really, really proud of it. But
well, also, I was just going to say, Dan, was that the actual, the image of your head. It's iconic, yeah. It's iconic because if any merchandise or anything you see in the whole world, then it's your head. That's your head basically. Nobody else will ever have it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's cool.
But yeah, so I went through. All of us went through a challenging time, varying degrees in COVID. 2020 was probably. It wasn't my hardest year because I very open with this. I'd struggled with drinking too much. The pressure of suddenly being known and successful, really, I wasn't prepared for. That was quite challenging, and it's not kind of like boohoo, woe is me. Like I wasn't ready for that, and made some big mistakes. With my time and energy and money and resources at the time, because I wasn't prepared for it. But I kind of got out of that phase, really started looking after my health. I stopped drinking. I'm not one of these people that's like anti-alcohol, but for me, it was not good. And, 6.5 years now, haven't touched a drink. So really, that was a really powerful thing for me, because like drinking was a big part of my identity. It was always like Grey Goose, and I was always like the party guy whenever I went to stuff, and it was nice to put that to bed. But in 2020, obviously, the first bit I'm going to start off with just sounds really pretentious, but I don't come from much. I'm not a wealthy family at all. I started off the year, I had a couple of jet skis that I treated myself to. They were racing ones. I used to like racing them, and they got stolen. So I started off the year, two of my favorite things I wanted since I was a little boy got stolen. But I remember I got the call when I was on the way to hospital to see my dad, who was going in for what I thought was routine surgery. So I was like, do you know what? Obviously I was pissed off, but they're just items. And quite frankly, I was like, do you know what? I can replace it if needs be. It's, more important things in the world. Turns out then I found out when I saw my dad that day, turns out that he had cancer for 2 years and hadn't told me. And I was like, okay, cool. You're going into, sort of going in for some surgery, so hope that cures it. Then we all had to deal with COVID. I also own a gym. That was my first business. My boys who were there they're like the sort of the sons I never had, so I had to look after them. Obviously, that business was very precarious for a period of time, because we couldn't do our job. Then, unfortunately, Dad's cancer came back, and we lost him in July of that year. I had a really challenging relationship. In the sort of autumn of that period of time, which really hurt me. I don't blame the person, but it was just, it was my first experience of being kind of like sort of, probably say, manipulated a little bit. And it was quite, heartbreaking, to be fair. So it'd been literally one hit after another. And I remember on, I believe it was the 9th of December, I think so, my mum called me whilst I was doing my coaching calls. And my mum never calls me. That's the rule. She never would call unless it was important. And she's like, I don't mean to worry you, son, but we've had an accident today. So I was like, cool. Spoke to my client, said, right, got to go, hung up. So look, I'll hop over and see you straight away. So a couple of years prior, my little sister had broken her neck, and she had a 9-hour operation to basically reattach her head to her neck. It's called a hangman's fracture. That's what she got. And she's also special needs. So she's 40 now, but she's like a little kid. So, that's always something that's been a big motivator for me in business and stuff, to be able to provide for her and mum and dad. But, without dad around, I was like, right, I've got to step up my game a little bit. And I hopped on my motorbike, drove over to see them. All good, calmed my sister down, because she was just a bit panicking about what might happen to her. She was worried that it would happen again. And, she just had a little bit of whiplash. So they had a bad car accident, car got written off. And I remember just sat there with mum in the living room, just saying, we're like December the 9th now, and I was in the middle of a launch. And I said, look, the year is nearly over, 2020, fuck it, horrible year. And I thought, yeah, nothing worse can happen. And then I was riding home. I wasn't speeding. I had a very bright, loud, noticeable bike. It was a very well-lit road. There was just me and one other person on the road, and that person pulled out a junction and ran me over. So I ended up obviously in hospital that night. And I remember just in hospital, and I still think there was some pandemic bullshit going on. And I remember thinking to myself, I didn't have anyone in my life at that point. I lived alone, and I was lying in the hospital bed, bloodied jeans, gear was in tatters, and just thinking, oh, this isn't really fucking awesome. Yeah. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, I felt a bit of a fraud. I've got this book called How to Be Fucking Awesome. And I thought, yeah, I'm pretty fucking far from awesome right now. And that then inspired me to make a lot of changes. And, first, I had to have some surgery. I had my hip replaced after the bike accident, which is fine. So I've got a metal hip now, which is much better than my real hip. So I ended up having that done. And then I was like, right.
So you like the Steve Majors? You like this? It's called Dan Majors, Steve Majors.
Oh yeah,
there's $6 million man.
There's more metal bits as well since then, but I really got focused on what was truly important, and then I've been, developing, realizing that connection, spending time with loved ones, health and wellness, and actually, really doubling down on the things that were actually truly important was my next focus for a little period of time, and I had an epiphany. It would have been in February of 2023. I just felt a bit flat, a little bit of a funk. Couldn't figure out why, so I went back to where I used to go when I was a little boy, which was Woolacombe Beach. I used to go there with my family when I was a little kid, and I went back and I just walked up and down the beach just thinking, until I remembered a study of all things about, you know, income and happiness and how important it is to, you know, focus on certain things and so on and so forth. And then it's been my mission since then to try and help people be as successful as possible, but also be happy. And that might sound like a bit floaty and a bit woo, but like the next book that I've written does focus on that, because I see a lot of people in, you know, business space, startup space, entrepreneurship space who are chasing these big numbers and these big goals and sales and money and revenue, which is important. I'm not saying it's not. It is important. And I think, you know, especially in today's society, you do need money to be able to enjoy life to a degree. But to what extent? You know, when is enough enough? When are you going to actually achieve the things you want to achieve? And actually, are we chasing some of the wrong things in our lives? And that's down to every individual. So lately I've been helping people be very, very successful in business, but not at the expense of, you know, their happiness, their wellness, you know, their family, their relationships and stuff. Because I've seen too many people just burn out and ruin wonderful things, you know, ruin their body, ruin their mental health, their mindset, ruin relationships. And I'm like, that stuff's really fucking important. And I'd sacrificed a lot of those things and I don't regret it. Absolutely no regrets whatsoever. But you can build successful businesses and be a successful entrepreneur without losing your soul. You still have to work hard. You still have to do things. You still have to get shit done. But I now try and get that balance between achieving the, you know, the financial and the monetary and the success and status goals with looking after the human being as well. Because I didn't for a long time. It was all about do the work at the expense of anything else. And I don't regret it per se, but I do think I did a few things wrong. And I want to help people now build the businesses and the lives that they want, but they actually want for them, not what they feel they should do, not what society tells them should do, what they think they should do because of what their peers or friends or contacts do. What is it you want to fucking do? Let's get really clear on that first of all. What do you want to do? And now let's go make it a reality.
Do you think? I mean, thank you for sharing that story. I mean, I didn't obviously know that detail. I mean, that's like a lot of shit. You could say a lot of not awesome stuff happening in a very short space of time.
Very true.
I mean, do you think there's an epidemic around that?
As in people not feeling, you know, good or happy? Is that what you mean?
Well, I mean, you know, so I went. I mean, taking or leaving. I don't know. I mean, you know, I went to see Jordan Peterson late last year at Wembley, and you know, he's with his wife and he's doing like a you know, chat and talk on stage.
Yeah,
very diverse audience there. You know, balance between, you know, men and women and other people who, you know, call themselves different initials after that. I'm not going to go there. But you know, there's this thing about, and I don't know if it's him or somebody else said that, you know, you're never going to be happy. There's always going to be obstacles and, you know, ups and downs. Yeah. So, you know, do you ever get to that kind of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, the self-actualization kind of thing? I suppose it's my observation is it's that thing. I think sometimes I find that what, you know, our education system, and maybe depending on what you've gone through, is people don't get, you know, they deal with situations like you've had in different ways. So they kind of like, it takes them down a downward spiral. Yeah. When to my mind, you're never going to get a complete clean run with nothing happening adversely. And I think that unfortunately, depending on how you've been brought up, sometimes you get fed that story. It's all going to be rainbows and you know,
which is
candy clouds and everything like that. So I think that's the thing, is that, you know, and then when people it's about that dealing with resilience, isn't it? Being resilient and dealing with adversity. And it sounds like you've been through that, but then also it gave you an epiphany moment where you say, this is my next game, my next level of, you know, what's important to you. So it sounds like that was healthy from that point of view.
I mean,
that adversity, you came out of the back of that, and you've gone to another, you've gone down another path.
Agreed. I think, I'm not one of those people that, I don't like to dwell on things too often. And, just, it may seem a bit of an oversimplification, but shit happens. Like you could be, everything could be going perfectly and in your business, and then a crucial bit of tech shuts down, or somebody leaves, or somebody just like says fuck it and decides to have a meltdown on you, or the market suddenly changes overnight. Like who knows? Like shit happens. Again, as we were talking before we got on air, I decided to, one of the things I really focused on was my health and wellness as well as connection alongside business. And I threw myself back into boxing again. I actually got in the ring in front of 500-600 people pretty much a year ago today. It was
where was that? Was that your call, or was that somewhere else?
No, that was in Bristol, and I ended up getting matched against a professional fighter because my opponents kept pulling out. And freak accident. I ducked under a punch after dropping my opponent down to the canvas. I stepped back to Dutch under. My foot didn't contact properly. I rolled my ankle and broke my leg. So I broke my leg at a boxing match. I have no memory of this because then I got caught on the chin, and apparently my foot was 90 degrees the other way. So we were saying about the metal work. So my leg is all pinned and plated and all that kind of stuff. But again, because I see, that year, as horrific as it was, gave me phenomenal amounts of, resilience. And I sort of realized that actually I can keep going through some pretty fucking traumatic and heavy stuff. And I, obviously it was very wonky for a while, but I took it in my stride. And I just said, okay, cool. I got on with it. So I didn't allow it to kind of slow me down or stop me. And now I just see as obstacles and setbacks is just part of life. How I deal with it, my mindset, the mental models I use, it is really key. And some of the things that I sort of talk about in the next book is things, the things that allow you to weather those storms, which is like looking after your body, like it's like eating well, which is like being very connected with the right people, cutting out assholes, like literally just people, if they don't add value to your life, I'm not mean, I just remove them. I just, I haven't got the time or the energy. That's so crucial, those two things, and so special. I'm just not going to waste it on people that don't like me or don't add value. Just with all greatest respect, just fuck off. Like
a contact detox. Yeah.
Oh, that's a much more professional way than the one I said it. But I just got really, really clear on what's actually important. And, I do think entrepreneurship and, being self-employed and having your own thing is a massively powerful thing. Because I think it's incredibly important to be in charge of your own destiny and the things that you need to do. And as much as entrepreneurship can be tough, it has given me a vehicle that allows me to choose what I do, how I do it, how hard I want to play the game. I've had like, for example, the last couple of years, I would say have been like really steady for me, like been steady. I've been, doing well. Everything's just been good just to tick along. Now I'm full of energy. I'm ready to rock again. So I'm going to go up to, as I said earlier, that aggressive next level. And I'm a huge fan of doing that right now. But I just see as, setbacks and knockbacks and things now. It's par for the course. And I think for me as well, and I hope this lands the right way. I always, if I ever worry or panic or stress or feel anxious or just shit about anything, I think about my little sister. My little sister, I remember once her saying to me, I wish I had a normal brain. She's aware that she has something, different with her. And every time I have a woe is me moment, as you are allowed to do, you are allowed to feel shit and pissed off and depressed and frustrated. You're allowed to feel these things. But I always say you're allowed to feel them, but you shouldn't stay there. And for me, I always just think back to that thing that my sister said to me, and I'm like, she would absolutely kill to just have a brain that functioned like a normal brain, okay? As much as any of our brains are normal. But she would kill it, and I just keep going. And that's the thing. I feel, every time, I have a setback or something goes wrong, I consciously take time to remind myself how actually lucky and blessed I actually am. I live in a westernized world. I have a roof over my head. I have a nice car. I have savings. Yeah, things go wrong. Things don't go to plan sometimes. Okay, some things I launch just absolutely tank. Okay, no matter with the best intentions, just doesn't work. But I always just remind myself how lucky and grateful I am to have what I have, and the fact that I can influence my own future and influence my own happiness and my own connections, my own love, my own joy. And I really just think to myself, if I'm in a shit place at this point in time, that is not a fixed data point. That is just a point on a chart, okay? That can go up, it can go down, it can go left, it can go right, okay? Who's in charge of where that point goes? Me. And my actions, my thoughts, my beliefs, and what I do. And I'm, really into that kind of like ownership model now, is that, things happen, cliched, but I found that things have happened for me rather than to me. So yes, shit happens to me and things go wrong and people fuck up. And sometimes people are just dicks, to be honest with you, Andrew. Some people are just dicks. But I've always managed to find the lesson as long as I keep going.
Yeah, there's two things there. And I suppose it's practicing gratitude. It's the context of gratitude about where you are, and then also, I suppose, one of the things that when I was at Tesco, we got taught in this leadership course, choose your attitude. Yeah, you can take things in different ways. Things that hit you, how do you choose your attitude to you either go down the dumps or you try and smile and put some put a positive spin on it, because it's that reminded me. I don't know if you've seen that video by Jocko Willink, the good one. Have you seen that one? It's like about 2 minutes long.
I have.
So you've just broken your leg. Good.
Yeah, I did like that.
You just not got that promotion. Good. Yeah. And then when this guy, I know what you're going to say, boss. You're going to say good.
Yeah.
It's very funny. So, but yeah, it's taking things in your stride. I mean, I was just going to say to you, actually, I know you've got that show, your own show. I think now, given you look so buff when you were doing your boxing training, right? Because you're putting all these pictures on Instagram and stuff like that. It was like fucking, Charles Atlas.
Do you know what? As someone who'd been like I said, I did have a little bit of thirst trapping. I won't lie to you, but I'd been a bigger chap for a good few years, and it felt good to be.
No. I'm complimenting you, but what I'm saying is, I know you've got this show, the Body and the Beast. You see, you're gonna have to tell Jay. You're going to have to swap it around. Yeah, he's going to have to be the beast for a bit, and you're going to have to be the body.
Do you know what? That's what it is. I have had the fortune, and this sounds dodgy, but I don't mean this way. We've shared a hotel room more than a fair share, and we've gone to the gym together and spar together, and the man is in phenomenal shape. And if anyone who's listening, his name's Jay Alderton. I think he's got 1 million plus followers on TikTok and 600,000 or so on Instagram. He's doing, he's very, very good at social media, but he's also in phenomenal shape. He was a...
Yeah, he's ex-military, I think, isn't he? I think
that's correct.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I like the ones where he was doing, like, he does the ice baths, obviously in the morning, I think, or late at night, and then he was doing the thing swimming in the sea.
Yeah, he got me. I went to one of his events recently, and he actually got me into the whole. It was an ice bath day, so basically the peak of the day was all of us did an ice bath for at least 2 minutes. And do you know what? I really did enjoy it. And, both me and Joe are obviously very different characters, but, one of the things that we talk about in our podcast and a lot of our content is the concept of, discipline. Like, I put on events, I do, talks, I do chats with people, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. And that can often be quite motivational. So I'm trying to motivate people and give people that kind of like inspiration or guidance or, information to kind of go on to their own version of the next level. But what really gets you there, Andrew, it is discipline. It's quite boring. Like it is literally, a handful of steps repeated daily for time that will change your life. And I know I said earlier about the kind of sprint version, and that's good for me because that's kind of cool. I call those my little plate spins. It's just kind of gets me up to another level, but consistently and quite boringly doing the same things day in, day out. If you can learn to love the boring and just do those things, especially the things which are not necessarily that much fun or exciting or good for you, it really can change your life. It really does. And it's like, the people I've seen who've achieved success, I've been online now for 10 years plus, and I've got a very, very good visual memory, and I remember details, and the people that I still see who are doing well and have achieved great things, they've just been around. They just literally showed up all the time. They've just been consistent, and they've grown and they've learned and they've adapted and they've changed. You don't see them chopping and changing what they're doing. 1 minute they're running this business, then they're promoting that, then they're a crypto expert, and now they're going into marketing and funnels. Next they're launching a SaaS business. It's like, just fucking pick something and stick at it. And the ones that have done really well, pretty much been doing the same thing for a long period of time.
I was going to say, because I was actually going to come to your event that you did recently. There was what was it called? The Extravaganza or something?
Yes, yeah, Extravaganza.
Yeah. Where was that? Was it in Wales somewhere? Where was
Bristol?
Was it somewhere?
It's in Bristol.
Oh, Bristol. Okay. And how did it go?
Yeah, we completely sold it out. It was really good. We had a really good day. We had a great, mix of speakers. And again, we were talking earlier about the pandemic and how it's, changed people and different thoughts and how we do a lot of things. But I hadn't put on an event since the pandemic. I'd done smaller ones, more intimate for my coaching clients and, the people that are, masterminds and things. But I hadn't done like a big event since 2019. And honestly, it was a test for me because a lot of people now, it's, I've got lots of friends who are, very successful in, business, marketing, entrepreneurship, personal development, who have consistently put events on it, and getting people out of their homes, getting people away from their screens and getting a bum on a seat and getting people to commit to a bum on a seat is really hard. But one of the things when I was going on this sort of journey of sort of like learning more about things that were important to me and things I wanted to do, and something that I realized, 4+ years ago when all that nonsense happened, was that connection was a big part of that. And I think social media has its wonderful side and its shit side as well. And it is great that you can connect with people, you can do it from your phone, you can meet people all around the world and learn different things, but it's also not real life. It can often be a sanitized version of what people say. People say what, they show you and what they want to show you. It's not real life. It's not the same as being in a room with someone or connecting with someone. And I think for me, I swung too far the other way. Everything went online. I'd lost that in-person, that human connection. So I started off with, friends and family, obviously I've got a partner, mum, sister, people who've been around for, but just bringing those people together. And then I started doing that now in my client side of things as well. So that balance between online and offline is key. And the sort of future for me is finding vehicles to bring people together in person under a common theme. Still going to leverage online and communities and the power and speed at which you can, grow and connect with people with the online landscape. But I can see a swing back now to people actually getting a little bit jaded with online, with social media, with just connecting with people on a screen all day long, and actually want to spend time with people and meet other people and connect with others and network and just make some fucking friends as well. Because, I don't know, your audience is quite a diverse list, but those of you listening who have your own business, got your own company, self-employed, for example, can be quite lonely. And it can be really lonely, in fact. And I'm just like, well, I'm not a fan of whinging. So I'm like, I felt lonely at times. That's where Coffee with Dan, which is the free Facebook group that I started on a whim 8.5 years ago, or 9 years ago, whenever it was. And I just did it on a whim because I was feeling lonely and wanted to connect with other people. And I thought, fuck it, let's just make it a thing. But I know from every event that I put on lately, because I've done like 2 or 3 lately, is that I have so many people coming up to me afterwards saying that was just what I needed. I didn't realize how much I needed to, get out there and spend time with people and talk to people and all that sort of stuff. And I'm really happy that I did that. It's important.
Yeah, I mean, I think, all power if you're doing it, because I think people got a bit lazy because of the COVID thing.
Massively.
But then I think that there's, that thing about human connection. It's like doing this stuff in person. There's nothing as powerful as that, because you can live in a little box, on the screen, forever. I suppose the advantage me and you've got. We did actually meet in person quite a few years ago, so it's not as though we're complete virtual strangers. But I think
it's important.
I would celebrate that coming back because, as you know, I run a couple of big communities or meetup groups in London, some tech ones. And, we ran one event last year in May, an in-person thing. We got a few people turning up, but we used to run events with like a couple of hundred people, in the middle of the week. And just like, if I did that now, nobody would ever turn up. It's killed it.
It has.
Because it's just that this online stuff is so accessible. So it is a bit of a, but it's back to the thing about the design. If you are going to do an in-person event, how do you design it to be compelling and think it through? Because it got to a point, I think there was too many in-person events. They were too similar. I'm not going to mention any names on this episode, but I do have some personal views on certain people who just seem to do the circuit, and then it just becomes a bit samey. So I think there's also that thing about, you've got to pick your moments. And let's face it, you've got a great following because you add value. So
Thanks, mate.
People are, I think people are going to jump at it when they get an in-person opportunity. So I'm glad it went well.
Thanks, man.
Just give me some warning. I'll come down to Bristol. I used to come down to
mate.
Bristol all the time when I went to see, I was working at EE and Orange. We used to go down all the time on the Bristol Parkway. That's what I always used to get off. So in terms of the rest of 2024, I suppose the plan is to launch your book and then effectively,
it's get out there again.
Will you launch your book? Take the summer off then. You see, just watch all these book sales come in.
Well, all being well, I mean, I think for me, it's a case of it's a very different tone, this book, and I think sometimes, look, you have to take risks to get ahead. And this book, for me, marks a risk because it is a little. I'm not taking away from anything the previous book has done, but it's a different direction. I'm a different Dan to the one that wrote that, and my beliefs and my values and the things that I believe now have changed. So it's a risk for me. Equally, there's that whole that tricky second album thing. I've got a lot to live up to with this one, but it's the book that my head and my heart wanted to write. And I felt, there's a few things in there which are going to be, hard to read and are going to be challenging for people, especially those that have known me for a period of time or read the last book. But it's about being honest. And, I think when you strive and you push for something and you achieve, a level of success in whatever it is your life, it can be quite scary to take a risk because you're like, I'm doing really well with this. I don't want to upset the apple cart, or what if I fuck up, or what if I look stupid? And I've really, since Dad's passed, I've really just got to the point now where it's like, I mean, here's a question for you. Can you remember your grandfather's father's name? Would you know anything about him? So your great-great-granddad. Great-granddad.
Oh, God. So my oh, God, I think it was Johnny. Johnny, I think it was.
But so you just about know his name. Okay, that's it. So my attitude now has kind of shifted more that, realistically within 3, maybe 4 generations, anything we do isn't going to matter. We aren't going to be here for starters. So that's just a fact. We're not going to be here anymore. And I would much rather, whenever my final days come here, look back and have as few regrets as I possibly can and take more risks and try new things. And it can be very easy to fall into what I call this happy little rut where you work really, really fucking hard for a long period of time and you finally get some success and some status and some money and that sort of thing. And you're like, oh shit, I don't want to move now in case this goes away. Like I'll just keep this is fine just to stay here. And it's fine to, I like going up in level. So I get to a new level, get accustomed to it. Then I go off again to the next one. And I'll hold my hands up completely. Like I got into a happy little rut for a few years. Money was good, time was good, life was good, and it was nothing wrong with that. And it was a really enjoyable period of time. But I realized that I wasn't challenging myself, I wasn't growing, and I needed to take more risks. And those risks, calculated risks, not stupid risks, but those risks were the things that got me to where I was. So I'm like, well, risk is a part of business, it's a part of entrepreneurship, it's a part of growth. You do have to take risks from time to time. And I've got a lot more comfortable in the last 12 months or so of just taking calculated risks and pushing the envelope and trying things, because otherwise I find you will just, you'll start to stagnate mentally. You'll get really, really bored. And, everything moves so fast nowadays. It's quite easy to become irrelevant. So you need to kind of, adapt and change and move with trends and with the market and stuff. And, it can be exhausting, but that's just the game we signed up for. So, risk and managing risk and trying new things has been a big part of my sort of recent growth. And it's something, again, obviously it's been very much.
The thing is, that's interesting because, thinking back to your 3.5 days of drinking lots of coffee and writing that amazing book. And that was even before ChatGPT was launched. So it's hats off to you. Now maybe you can do it in 3.5 hours.
Well, that's it.
Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that story, because that's actually inspired me. I'm committing to you now to get my book sorted out.
Good man.
It's the 1st of May today. For anybody who's listening to this or watching this on 1st of May. So by the 30th of June, I will get something out.
There you
That's
go.
my plan.
Do it.
There you go.
And do you know what? I mean, it's sort of like, I would say a closing statement, but there's a really good bit of information, sort of way of what I look at things now. And it's, you've just done it just there. You have, I did a post about this the other day. It said, you're two real things away from a completely different reality. Number one, making a decision. Number two, taking action on that decision. Now, right now, you don't know how to, obviously you know how to write, obviously you probably do know how to write a book, but you don't know anything else other than the fact that you've just said, you've picked a date and you've given yourself a window to do it. Okay. So the next thing to do is to take some form of action. So maybe that's buying a course on how to write a book, reaching out to someone you know in publishing, blocking out time in your diary to do it, doing a post. You've done one of the hardest things that you just announced publicly you're going to do something. That's what I do because it's challenging because you don't want to look like a dick and go back on yourself. But I know it's been very much like me heavy in talking about this. And obviously, I do, my day-to-day job is helping other people achieve, their goals, their dreams. I coach people in their businesses, online and offline. That's what I've done now for 10 plus years. And I've got some, really good results. I've helped a lot of people. Don't have a clean sheet. Anyone who says they've got a perfect score is a fucking liar. But, pretty much everyone I've managed to improve their business or their life in some way or a noticeable way or another. But I myself don't think I could, ethically coach people if I wasn't prepared to do the sort of things that I'm telling other people to do from time to time. And that simple little model there of literally one decision and one action can change your life. Because I have spent, and I know many of my clients have spent time in this kind of like, I call it the what if zone. So what if it doesn't work? What if this doesn't happen? What? And do you know what? Flip it. What if it fucking does? You don't know until you try. And I have found I'm very, very comfortable looking like a dick now. So if it doesn't work, you will go through a little bit more like your ego of being like, oh, fuck, that didn't go to plan, or God, that tanked, or that fucking wasted my money, or whatever. And you know what? It might last a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, but most people, this is it, most people aren't thinking about you. Most people aren't thinking about you. And you're not thought about really that much at all. Most people have got their own shit to worry about. So yeah, you might look like a bit of a muppet if you do something wrong, or it fails, or it costs you money, or flops. But
what I should do then. This is a you don't have to say yes, but this is an offer. It wouldn't be great if I did an event to launch my book and you were the speaker. You come and speak. You were there. I invited you.
More than happy to, mate. If you do it, I'm free. I will turn up.
That's like pass it forward, isn't it? Because no, honestly, Dan, that story you told me about what you did, you crazy madman, 8 years ago. That inspired me to just tell you what I'm prepared to do now. That's fantastic. Thank you.
But this is, I think, well,
much
firstly, you are more than welcome. And to anyone listening, like, I just kind of want to sort of close with this. Really, like, I'm not that special. Okay, I'm fair. I'm decent at stuff. I've learned my skills. I invested my time and energy and resources into getting good at things. But the key thing that I have is I just try things. I don't let my brain talk me out of it. And I know that may not make any sense because you are your brain, but sometimes those negative thoughts can spiral. You're not good enough. This isn't going to work. All that kind of stuff. I just kind of I nip that in the bud and I take action before I let any negative thoughts or self-doubt or self-sabotage kick into place. I just do things. And, the whole concept of the first book was getting shit done. And I still believe in that. The more, quote, shit you do, the generally more likely you're going to get what you want results-wise eventually at the end of it. But nothing's going to happen if you don't do the work, if you don't show up, if you don't create something, if you don't, do whatever it is you need to do to grow your life and your business. And I'm a huge believer in that. And, am I perfect? No, of course I'm not. I have periods where I don't get shit done. I can't operate at that high level all the time. But strategic periods of getting shit done and just hard effort and focused on the work without sacrificing your soul, without sacrificing the things you love, make sure you've got good, like you're looking after yourself, you're connected, you're spending time on you as well and your work, whatever that may be, has really changed my life. And quite frankly, as I sort of mentioned earlier, you've got one of them, you've got one life, you might as well give things a go. If I had listened to the little voice that told me I'd never be an author, or it was pointless me writing a book, or no one would read my bullshit, I've impacted millions of lives. That's mental. I'm just a guy from Somerset who decided, honestly, I didn't want to settle for average. I was quite successful in the corporate space, and I was quite successful in the health and wellness space as well, and in advertising too. But I come from a upper working class background, I would say. We didn't have much money. I'm okay academically, I'd say. I've got a sports and nutrition degree. I'm not special. I just didn't want to accept my lot in life. And I thought, you know what? There's other people out there who've done really well. And I went to events, and I went to masterminds, and I watched talks and stuff. And I started sort of, trying to reverse engineer some of these people. But yeah, don't get me wrong. There's some people out there, probably people that and connected to with the sort of work you do in the spaces you do, who are just geniuses, absolute geniuses. And I see people like that, and their minds make me marvel. So I'm like, wow, you deserve to be successful because you're so smart and you're so driven. Like, cool. I can't do what you can do. But what I can do is I can work, and I can show up, and I can be pretty fucking useful. So I'll just focus on doing that. And, whilst connecting with people and actually giving a shit about other people. Like, in my business and day-to-day life, I don't use an awful lot of tech and automations. You message me, it's me. If you're coaching, it's, you have some degree of access to me. It's Dan.
Hey, Dan, you're gonna create the Dan bot.
Well, we tried that before. We did try, Leanne, who works for me, created a sort of like messenger bot thing. And I just, and it was for the Coffee with Dan page. So we made it very clear it wasn't me. But for me personally, that human interaction, yeah. Is it efficient? Are there smarter ways of doing it? Yeah, of course there are. You probably
as long as you make sure that the Dan bot has got a beard, like a Leonidas beard, like.
Thank you. But yeah, it's just connecting with human beings, and has been a real big thing for the last few years of me as well. It's really important, and I think with the proliferation of tech and AI and automations, and how easy it is to not connect with people, I've doubled down on that, because you know what? That's the one thing, that human connection. You as an individual, your beliefs, values, morals, etc. That's the one thing technology can't replace. It can't replace you as a person, your unique view on the world, your experiences. And again, I think we've swung one way, we're now swinging back the other way. And I'm just trying to find that nice happy medium in the middle where we can leverage all the wonderful things that tech and the online world has given us, but not forgetting at essence that we are human beings. We are supposed, no matter how introverted you are, we are supposed to be connected with others. We are supposed to, spend time with other people. And that's that balance that I'm trying to bring to like my clients' lives and, the people that I get the fortune to be able to impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. Just listening to them was about what I would call mind talk. So that kind of when what's called a trigger event happens, something, you get an email or you get some kind of comment to you, or whatever, about how you react to that. So you can it's like the runaway train where your mind plays tricks on you to go to a doomsday situation.
Yep.
And then the other thing I suppose was about what was I thinking about then? Yeah, I suppose it's this thing about in this world that we're living in, which is becoming, I've spent quite a few decades in technology. Some of the things that I've been seeing over the last 18 months, it scares me even, and I consider myself pretty au fait with this technology stuff.
Yeah,
it's just some of the people that are working on this stuff, actually, do they have humanity's best interests at heart? Yeah, and working with some people, it's that balance between IQ and EQ.
Yep, massively.
That so people who've got massive IQs maybe are sometimes not as developed on the EQ side. So it's like, how do you get the right balance between those two things? Otherwise, if you got, 2 IQ, knows EQ, so that's kind of like we're not robots. So there's obviously quite, when I spoke to Christopher Lockhead the other week, who wrote the book Play Bigger, like a Silicon Valley Bible all around growth. He said, what is Tesla? He said Tesla is a human-assisted robot. That's what the basic. It's not a car. He views it as a human-assisted robot, because there's so much capability in the Tesla car and what Elon's building. Now that's kind of like the singularity moment coming up. But anyway,
mate,
we digress.
It's an interesting world, and like I said, for me, can I change the world? Well, don't know is the honest answer. All I can do is the best I possibly can, with what I do. And in my case, it is the written word. I think books are very powerful, and I think they always will be. But I'm a huge believer in, focusing on what you can control. And I know I can, influence, motivate, and help those people that I'm connected to. And, can I do it globally? Don't know. But can I make a difference, to hundreds, thousands of people with my work, and tens, hundreds, thousands? Yeah, I can, and I focus on that. It's just trying to make a positive difference and a positive impact most days. And when I wrap this existence up, that's what I want to be. I don't want to be on my deathbed with any regrets, but I want to know that I haven't sold my soul and done anything to deliberately harm anyone else. I want to make a positive impact. And for me, the vehicle that I've chosen to kind of drive is entrepreneurship. And that is, for me, the vehicle that I think has changed my life. And I would encourage, most people can do something in that space. Not everyone. And some people would be better off suited to, having a job and helping others. But, for me, as much as it can be stressful and chaotic and gut-wrenchingly panic-inducing at times, it also gives me a lot of freedom, gives me a lot of control. And if I have wins or if I have losses, it's totally my fault. And that feels good to me. If I don't do the work, I don't get the results.
Yeah. It's like extreme ownership, isn't it? It's like never leave it to chance. Great, fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on the show today. I mean, I was just going to say, when
it's been a pleasure.
Have you got a launch date for your book then? Is that in the diary already?
Or all being well.
Is that like under wraps? I don't need to announce it if it's not being agreed.
All being well, middle of June. All being well. So I've got everything project managed. Well, I say I have. People who are good at project managing are telling me within the next 2 days what needs to happen and when. So I've just told people, just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. So yeah, it should be out. I mean, my current book has been out on Audible and on Amazon for 8+ years now. So if you want to see that, that's great. But then the new one should be, by summer, it will be out there.
Cool. Well, yeah, so thank you for coming on the show. Dan Meredith, live from Bristol, in the UK. And I mean, in terms of actually people connecting with you and following up, what's the best way of finding you on the Tinternet?
I'd probably say just the quickest way if you want to get hold of me is literally just add me on Instagram, drop me a message. Like literally it's @TheRealDanMeredith if you want to say hello, or you can email me, dan@coffeewithdan.com. There's no opt-ins or anything like that. It's me at the end of either of those two. So if there's anything you think I can help with, great. If not, thank you for listening. Hope you got some value out of this somewhere. And even if that value is, dear God, I don't want to be like him, then cool, I've done my job. But, wherever you're listening, wherever you are in life, I genuinely, hand on heart, wish you the best and, hope you get everything you're looking for.
This was the episode sponsored by Tinder. Swipe left, or swipe right. Anyway, thank you very much, Dan, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'll see you soon.
Indeed,
thank you.
Take care.
That was Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast, and Mr. Dan Meredith. Thank you.